Hello, I'm George Liston, CA. Welcome to Dialogue, a program that explores the world of ideas and issues in international affairs, history, and culture. Edward R. Murrow remains the most revered name in American broadcasting, and he once characterized the promise of television this way. This instrument can teach, it can illuminate, yes, and it can even inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. That sense of the informative role of television forms part of the mission of TV Globo, a Brazilian television giant whose worldwide impact is largely based on the power of the ideas and issues expressed in their production. In this way, the television dramas produced by TV Globo have elevated the genre of the melodramatic soap opera and enchanted millions of viewers in scores of countries around the world. My guest is once again Amaury Soares, Chief Executive Officer of Globo International in New York City. Amaury, welcome again.
Thank you very much.
I'm so glad we have a chance to go on and turn to the very fascinating subject of the novellas for which Globo is rightly so famous. And in fact, I use that quote from Edward R. Murrow with very profound seriousness on my part because it does raise the issue of the conviction of the force of ideas in television. And I think one of the first points we could discuss is the power of the ideas that are chosen for Globo's television dramas, for its novellas that go around the world. And once again, let's use a little clip to introduce the topic and talk about it.
All right, okay.
At the turn of the millennium, a drama moved and mobilized Brazil. Every evening between July 2000 and February 2001, more than 40 million avid spectators stopped everything to watch a nationally broadcasted television soap opera. In the story Family Ties, the character Camila is diagnosed as having leukemia.
É uma anemia? É leucemia?
Leucemia.
A type of cancer that affects nearly 10,000 persons per year in Brazil. As in real life, Camila's only hope was finding a compatible donor and undergoing a successful medulla transplant. The character's desperate search for a compatible donor motivated hundreds of thousands of people in real life to contact health centers for information on how they could donate bone marrow and save the lives of people they didn't even know.
É muito bom a gente perceber e sentir que o trabalho feito dessa maneira pode resultar em uma influência boa, numa influência, pelo menos, de esperança.
Amaury, that's absolutely powerful. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that novella literally changed the landscape of organ donation in Brazil. Totally. There's another situation right now.
Another reality.
Another reality, absolutely. That's a very good example that what a TV, what a mass communication media can do for a country, for a community, if you use in a right way. So that quote from Murrow is so update, is so actual. You know, we are doing this kind of social campaign in every program, in every novella. We change the issues, but always there is a social cause. We call this a social cause placement in our program, Made in Novelas.
Always there's a serious question at the heart of the drama that people should discuss and do something about later. Is that the idea?
Exactly.
Not just be entertained.
No, that's the idea. Those issues are part of the story, right? So, like the author just said, they choose an issue and put in a main story, and characters are going to to link with that, and the audience are going to link with that.
Right. You know, they use the word choose, and that's just the word that was in my mind too, is how are these things chosen? How do these teams operate? How do you produce something like this? Because it seems to me this is not just entertaining, obviously. So research, writing, choosing the topic, relating it to and because you said in our earlier conversation everything relates to Brazilian reality, How are those decisions made? Is it different from other television operations?
Mainly from the sensibility of the author. You know, they are free for, you know, because the author, they work with the reality, right? And they can create their stories, their fiction from the Brazilian reality. So they are free to, you know, look to the reality, to talk to people. They have researchers. We provide, as a company, all kinds of support for that, you know, information.
So you put the artists
studies.
first, the creative. I mean, you give them, it sounds like a great deal of autonomy.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Encouragement.
They have total autonomy for that, and they can choose whatever they want. Of course, they are watching the country, the reality, the papers, you know, the news, and the national issues, the national debate at that moment, and they usually take their influence from this reality. You know.
They get their cues from what's going on in the real world.
Exactly.
And then translate it.
At the time of that novella, for instance, Brazil was suffering with, you know, the lack of organ donation. Brazil had in that time a huge line of, you know, patients, people waiting for, you know, organs from donation, and that's because the author chose the issue and put in the novella and literally changed the landscape of that situation. That's the reality.
That's amazing. And of course, as we discussed in our earlier conversation as well, a novella like this, produced by Globo, is seen elsewhere in the world. You know, it goes to, I mentioned before, Russia, Israel, many other countries. Do you get the sense that it has the same kind of direct, maybe not the same impact because every country is different, but it gets the same public attention because you deal with a topic like this?
Yeah, normally our clients, international clients, they are keeping those campaigns in their novella and replying this in their countries, because, you know, some kind of issues like donation, organ donation, is the same in every country. Every country needs, you know, more donations to create, you know, conscious about this, the importance of donate organs. So normally they keep the original campaign in the story, and they air exactly the way we did in Brazil in their countries.
That's amazing. I mean, I keep thinking that it's kind of a multiplier effect, if you will, around the world.
Exactly.
The same social conscience ideal goes forth. You know, we have a perfect example of that as affects this country and a lot of the programming you're doing. I want to turn to it in just a moment. It's a clip about a subject that is, well, I'll just say the word and people will know, immigration. You know, everyone, and you well know here in America, everyone is concerned about this, talking about this, or should be. Let's actually take a look at that clip and see how Globo is treating this in the context of a novella.
Sabe o que é isso aqui dentro? É a América. É assim mesmo como você está vendo. Lindo, limpo. Todo mundo tem direito a tudo. A ter casa própria, médico de graça. É a América.
Eu paguei essa casa sozinha. Paguei todinha. Tá aqui o comprovante. Olha.
Volto carregado de diamante. Compro essas terras tudo aqui em Beira. Levanta um casarão daqueles de filme, filho. Eu já tenho ele tudo desenhadinho aqui na minha cabeça.
Papai, eu quero um boi pulador, tá? E eu quero um quarto só meu. Um quarto bem grande.
I want to watch the whole series. I think I have to watch it. Start wherever you want to start and tell us about this. It looks absolutely fascinating. First, let me just say this, though. That image of the little, what do we call these things, with New York in it, you know, shaking. I thought that was just a powerful symbol of what it's all about.
Yeah, it's a dream, right? A dream,
right,
a dream in a globe, in a glass globe, right?
Yeah.
And this novella is America, is about immigration, the Brazilian immigration to U.S. It's not only Brazilian, but Latin immigration. There is a story. The main character is that woman, young woman, who dreams about living in the U.S. In search of an opportunity. I think it's a small contribution to this issue, immigration, because immigration is the real globalization.
Exactly.
Because it's about people, and sometimes it seems for me that nobody is discussing deeply this issue. Sometimes it seems that the discussion is only about open or close gates in rich countries. It's not like that. Immigration is about people. People is the real thing. So immigration is the real globalization. I think we have to discuss it more deeply. And I'm not really doing any kind of propaganda of immigration at all. Illegal immigration is illegal, is risky, is something that we have to take care. But immigration is the most important issue in this century. It's going to be.
I think we should reverse roles. You can interview me because it gives me a chance to say I fully agree. I think that what I call, or you said better than I, social migration, populations moving around the world, that's the big question of our time. And so I think it's to the globalist credit that you're addressing it this way. The other thing about this series, Amaury, and I think I'm right on this, is that it's obviously it has a cast, it has a protagonist and central characters in the story, but it treats every class, doesn't it? Many varieties of immigration to this country in the story, don't you?
Yes. You mean in America? Yes, in America. Yes, because the Brazilian immigrants, in this novella, they interact with Cuban in Florida, another Latins and Italians in New York. They are going to, to talk about immigration in their lives outside of their hometown, their countries. It's going to be very interesting. It's on air for almost 4 months, and it's doing very, very well.
It's been on the air for 4 months?
Yes, in Brazil, in our international channel. And probably it's going to be aired in the United States in Spanish. In Telemundo, maybe that's a good chance that it's going to happen.
I think that just from our first conversation, as well as what you just said, people here are going to want to know how they can see this. So in other words, it's midway through its series, basically. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's a powerful example of ideas in broadcasting, and there's another area, obviously, we can go into, and I think we will right now, where ideas and the seriousness with which they're approached is fundamental. And once again, I'm going to introduce a little bit of your personal history here. I know you did a lot of news broadcasting in Brazil, news editing and so forth.
I worked for 15 years for the news department.
For the news department.
I'm a journalist. I'm working with international business and international programming right now, but I see myself as a journalist.
Which puts you squarely in the global tradition, because global TV is a product, really, of Globo as a journalistic empire.
Exactly. Everything started with journalism, with a local paper, and then TV, local TV, and then a network, and then local radios, and today radio networks. There is a huge responsibility in doing communication business in Brazil. Why? Because Brazil is a huge country, is a continental country, very connected through culture, but very disconnected economically. Brazil has the worst wealth distribution in the world. So it's a huge challenge for us who talk to people every day. So culturally, it's very connected. Economically, it's very disconnected. So I think we, as a communication group, we can go through those problems, and try to put together communities, people, government, audiences, and put important issues on the table in order to promote very good discussions.
Indeed you do, and I think that, quite frankly, I mean, just from me to you, I think that's an act of social responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
I think we should also consider, Amaury, I know you want to, I know you do this in your work every day, how this plays back, and I know our audience is interested too, in how America is portrayed, how you cover American events, how news, international events are covered by the news. And the best example, of course, is to look at a couple of clips of that and see how your news coverage does that.
Em Nova York, os motoristas não estão nada satisfeitos. A gasolina já subiu 21% desde o começo do ano, mas ninguém deixa de abastecer o carro. Ao contrário, o consumo de derivados de petróleo em todo o mundo, e principalmente aqui nos Estados Unidos, não para de subir e o preço vai junto. Este ano, o preço do petróleo aumentou 40% e nesta segunda-feira, aqui em Nova York, passou de $60 o barril, um recorde histórico e um valor que o mercado considerava uma barreira psicológica. A eleição do ultraconservador Mahmoud Ahmadinejad como presidente do Irã, um dos maiores produtores de petróleo do mundo, ajudou a empurrar o preço. Na primeira entrevista, ele afirmou que quer manter boas relações com outros países, mas disse que o Irã não precisa dos Estados Unidos para se desenvolver. O temor é que o Irã se torne um país cada vez mais isolado, reduzindo a oferta de petróleo no mundo.
You know, that fascinates me, Emery, because you're a newsman. That's the story of the moment here, the gas story, but also the story of Iran.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about how those two things are connected, because that's kind of very creative coverage, I think.
Yeah, we have 20 journalists, Brazilian journalists in the U.S., you know, working with American issues. Their job is try to translate to Brazilian audience in Brazil what's going on in the world, but mainly what's going on in the United States and the connections between the United States and another country, because the United States is the leading country. It's the leader country in the world. There is. It has a huge power, and the United States is the biggest commercial partner of Brazil. So there is a very strong connection between Brazil and the United States in all sense of that. So we try every day to explain to Brazilian audience the connection between issues, important issues. In this story, we saw that the oil prices in the United States is going high and high and high. And at this moment, we have an election.
Right.
We saw an election in Iran, a tremendous important oil producer in the world. So what the connection between this election, between oil price in the United States, and what does that mean to Brazilian audience? So every day we work this way, putting issues together and showing connection between them and helping Brazilian people understand what's going on outside of the country.
Well, quite frankly, when I watch that, it helps me understand too, because as an American, you're right, the power of this country is unparalleled. But that can isolate you too, and from perspectives. That's a very interesting kind of creative and important way of seeing how we are, how things relate.
Yes, exactly. Because they are related all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a relation between everything, right? So I think it's a very good point for journalism to work on this level. What the connection between this issue and the other issue, even if they seems to be different things, but they never are different things. They are part of the one contest. They are part of one huge connection.
I'll just say this: if you wanted to define journalism in a sentence, it would be just what you said. It's about finding the connections, particularly the ones that you don't suspect are there. That's beautifully said. I'll just leave it at that. But let's take another look at another example here and see how this is done with another subject.
All right.
Patrulheiros que percorrem o rio de barco vão armados com fuzis militares M16 porque de vez em quando enfrentam contrabandistas e traficantes de drogas. Mas uma das principais missões deles é salvar pessoas que caem no rio. Apesar de ser estreito, é bastante profundo. Aqui nesse ponto são 20 metros de profundidade. Em alguns pontos a correnteza é bastante forte. Por isso, quem cai aqui no rio corre o sério risco de morrer afogado. E aquela cruz ali na beira é uma lembrança disso. No ano passado, 41 pessoas foram encontradas mortas pela patrulha nesta região. Este ano já foram 14. Os patrulheiros sobem e descem o rio em busca dos lugares preferidos para a travessia. Num dos trechos, eles avistam sinais. encontram roupas, sacos com remédios, pertences deixados para trás na tentativa desesperada de entrar nos Estados Unidos.
That's pretty gripping stuff. We were talking about immigration before.
Yeah.
This clearly reflects its costs.
Yeah, recently a lot of people are talking about immigration, but they are paying much attention in the police part of the story. You know, the enforcement,
right,
and the problem locally and on the border. You know, but immigration is much more complex than it. And I'd like to see more discussion about those people, the importance of the social importance and the economical importance of immigrations for countries like United States and countries in Europe. Because there is a very interesting study from Professor Jeremy Siegel from Pennsylvania about how can immigrants, Brazilian, Latin immigrants, can solve the social security problem in the United States.
Right.
You know, because in 2050, this country is going to have just 2 workers for every retires.
Right.
So who is going to pay the bill? Who is going to pay for new social security, for new taxes, in order to finance everything? Immigrants. So and I haven't seen so good discussions about it. You know, I think it's time to start this conversation. Once again, it's not about, you know, incentive illegal immigration. It's about to discuss a very important issue because it's about people.
It's about having a fuller discussion, isn't it? Touching
Exactly.
many perspectives. And, you know, I'm moved to ask you because we are talking about ideas. We're talking about this particular idea, something that television should do in a sense of a mission. Are there other subjects? I've always been fascinated with this since we've met and thinking about global. What other subjects do you think we're missing or we should be, we in television, global in particular, you know, looking forward to treating in coming years? For example, I think just right now the rise of Asia, the problems of Africa, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There must be millions, actually.
Yeah, ages in Africa and now going to Asia is a serious problem. Is a epidemic, something epidemic, and we are not seeing this on major TVs, in major networks, or in major media. But it's part of another thing, a biggest thing, which is we are not discussing the wealth distribution in the world. So we are talking about globalization as if the world was developing equally. It's not. It's in the other way around. Every day we are having more concentration of wealth. As the Africa AIDS epidemic is part of that. The problems in Middle East, some problems of that are part of it. You know, this immigration, the explosion of immigration from Latin America to the United States is part of this equation. Right. I'd like to see more discussion about, you know, the real globalization. You know, not the globalization of the international assets, not the globalization of international markets, bond markets, and stock markets, but the globalization of the human globalization. You know, about
right.
people, about wealth, about the poor countries are becoming more and more and more poor, and the rich countries more and more and more rich. So we have to talk about it.
And television has responsibility to present that story.
Yes, a tremendous role in a social responsibility and put this discussion on the table with no bias, with no agenda, but just providing interesting and legitimate forums for discussing this issue.
You know, when you speak about that and when you cite that issue, and I think you're quite frankly that's absolutely correct. I mean, we got globalization in quotes treated very academically too often as solely an economic transfer. But it's, as you said, it's a human story and it's a worldwide one. But I'm reminded, as you speak, though, of the journalistic roots of global, because you approach this pretty much as a news person.
Yes.
Looking at, making the connections
Exactly.
Or talking about the connections that should be made.
Exactly. You're right. Exactly. It's the connection. Because when I saw the paper every morning, you know, I put every story in contest because, you know, I'm a journalist. I was training for doing this. You know, I like this. I have, you know, some studies about it. But I think that the major media groups should do that.
Right.
Offer this kind of analysis to the audience.
But I'm moved to ask you this, because the power of television, yes. The power of Latin television in this country is also enormously important, as we both know. Univision is one example, and there are others. What's your sense, then, of the future role that you want Global to play, particularly as, you know, director of the New York office and the American interests? Yeah. Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think it's going to be harder for us than to another Latin groups because, you know, we are a Portuguese-speaking group.
Right.
So you have to, you know, we have to take one more step in order to speak in Spanish, to you know, to air in Spanish for this community. But Mailing Global is trying to become a major Spanish content provider, as it is in Portuguese language content. We are trying to find a way to, you know, to produce high quality content in Spanish and offer this content to Spanish networks in the United States, mainly Telemundo, which is our partner, and to another networks in Latin America, because I think this market is very interesting. Now it was just discovered, right, and now it's going to, you know, to mature, to become more and more interesting. I think we'd like to be part of it.
Well, I think you will be part of it. I think you're already part. I think you'll be an even bigger part. And that market itself will be, well, enormous. It's already big. It'll be enormous by mid-century. Amerie Soares, thank you so much. I mean, it's been absolutely a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, George. And I apologize for my English, for this, you know, very strong accent and everything. Thank you once again for having me here.
Well, just the accent was charming. English was great.
Thank you very much.
And that's our program. We appreciate your comments, and you can reach us at dialogue at wwic.si.edu. I'm George Liston, CA, and you've been watching Dialogue, a co-production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars and MHC Networks. Join us again right here next week, and thank you for watching.